Welcome to episode 2, speaking about exploring motherly connection with Diana Mesquita Landborg and myself, Raditya Lasri. And we've had a part 1, episode 1, and we were exploring our personal experiences with our motherly connection. We have then expanded it into how other people might have, had some disconnect or connections in the world that we're living in. We talked a little bit about what's going on in the world. We then also touched on social media and just technology as a whole. And that led me to think about what can we discuss that relates to now, to today, and what is really missing, and what would it take to make this world a more connective space. And so obviously all these thoughts has led me to this thought of motherly connection. And so as I introduce what today's conversation can be about, I would like to start by saying the number one focus here is really nurturing, safety, protection, and care. Love, if you want, right? And so what's your relationship to this? What's your relationship to nurture and care and love and protection and safety? Because those things is what mothers, or at least the people that cared for us when we were babies, when we were infants, when we didn't know anything about the world that we just embarked into, what that means. They gave us that sense of it, or lack thereof. So no matter what your experience was, everything after that is very much based into this. I mean, I don't have the science of this, but I strongly believe that that is how it all evolves into who we are today and how we interact with one another. And so talking about how to interact with one another, as we mentioned last time, Diana and I have never actually met in person. So we've been online buddies. We've met online on Instagram, I think, or Facebook. I don't even know. Oh, yeah, in a group, actually. Yes. We met in a group, and that expanded then in connecting on these other mediums. And this is now almost 4 years ago, like 3.5 years ago, that we've been on this journey together. And obviously, we've been both on social media. We have explored these senses. And what I'm discovering is that there can be a lot of connections happening on these platforms. And we can also find a lot of disconnections, especially in the comment section, on how do we dislike what someone just said or posted or talked about. And we can go on and on and on. And if you ever spend some time in the comment section, either acting, by writing something or by engaging and maybe even reading them. I love reading them just to get a sense of like what's going on, right? Like where is people's heads? And as I'm exploring this, I feel a lot of not safe spaces, right? And so that nurturing that mothers have given us, or maybe that we haven't fully experienced, we're seeking it somewhere. And today's world, this is somewhere where we can find it. And I wonder what your thoughts are around the things I just introduced ourselves into, because I want this to be obviously a conversation. It's not me asking her question or she's asking me questions. It's like an ongoing flow. And obviously, if you're watching this, feel free to engage with us in the comments. Either way, positive or negative, we'll take it all. And we would like to introduce you into these topics. And so, yeah, what are some thoughts that you're having, Diana?
Hello, Raditya, and hello, everyone. Nice to be here again. Yes, well, there's a lot of thoughts coming up when you were talking, and I so agree with you. I mean, the comment section, sometimes when I read it, I kind of stop reading it because that's so much hate in some. It depends where you are, in which space you are, like when I was in Mind Valley community, there was so much love and support, and actually that deepens our connection in the society and the Mind Valley team when we were at, it actually deepened our connection, right? And we became closer to one another, and it just had a good feeling. But if you read somewhere like on Facebook or on YouTube some kind of post, or actually even on a news and like newspapers page, if some journalist is writing something about, could be so much hate. It's horrible. And I'm sometimes thinking that people I'm not sure they would do that if they would do it in real life. But since they think that they are anonymous, they can like blur it out. And sometimes I'm wondering, do they really mean that? Or is something underneath that? Maybe they are frustrated and angry and just taking it out of someone actually who didn't do anything, you know? Sometimes I'm wondering that. But to go back to this, said nurturing and motherly connection and everything, I do believe that you said you didn't know the theories, but I mean, if you read a lot of psychological theories, there are old theories, there are new theories about how we behave and why some people are angry or why some people, and there are a lot of theories that are still, some say against it as in every science, but a lot of theories still there are saying that our childhood has such a huge impact in how we live our lives during the whole life, and especially if we didn't have a secure first 3 to 7 years, depending on which researcher you read, then it can affect you really in deep way how you react and act during your adult life. And there are a lot of researchers show if people, didn't have as good connection with either, doesn't have to be a mother, it could be any caregiver or a good teacher or whatever, any adult, they could behave really badly later on. When I was working with kids, I just remind in a school many years ago, there was some kids were really acting out. And in some cases it was problem with it seldom was problem with school really. It was often problem with friends or of problem at home actually. And in most cases actually we found out that there was something happening at home and they were reacting it out in school usually. So I mean, it's not always, but there is usually a connection. And as you say, if you don't nurture that connection at home, if you don't feel secure, if you don't feel safe, there's a bigger risk that you will behave more angrily or more maybe hurt others or whatever. It doesn't matter. I mean, I just feel that there's so much to it. If you have this nurture in your life and if you are stable even in yourself, I think you will be you behave differently, right? You won't be as easily affected. And as you and me were talking a little bit before, it's like when you're on social media, for example, and you are watching a lot of things and connecting with a lot of people, if you don't feel safe and secure in yourself and you don't feel nurtured and strong, and that doesn't have to be with something that happened to you in your childhood, but maybe happened in life and it's been too much, usually you can much easier get overwhelmed. But if you nurture yourself, even yourself, like for me, if I nurture myself and I go to nature and to water, and then I can connect with people around me in so much better ways. And I feel this, we talked about expansion. Then when I connect with you in another side of the world and we change, and we talk about things and we have still a lot of things in common, but we have also different cultures and we learn from each other and then we expand ourselves and expand our view of the world and in a positive way, right? But those cases when I don't feel nurtured and I stressed out and tired, then I more easily would get overwhelmed from all the information and maybe just shut down and do something else and maybe not engage at all.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I that's a yeah, very beautifully described, because I think my question, and obviously always will come up, so okay, that's the facts, right? Like this is what's happening in a way. And I'm not talking facts like, oh, that's all there is. There is obviously way more things that we can talk about and be more descriptive. And then the question for me, as I just said, is like, what I'm going to do about it then? Like, what if I don't feel safe? What if I'm not insecure in myself? What are there some tools and ways that I can go about it? And I was just thinking, like, obviously, yes, find a space that you feel safe in. And for me, it's always like when I expand into other spaces, that's when I know how far along I am in feeling safe and secure and self confident and all this, right? And there is this difference between resistance and truly feeling self-confident. And I'm bringing this up in this context of motherly connection because if you all remember how you were as a teenager, I'm sure as a parent that was not a very pleasant time. And I'm sure you're getting slowly into that phase of teenager life experiences as a mother. I'm not quite there yet. And I'm sure like maybe it gives you some flashbacks on the challenges that were there as a mom, as your mom, and then as you as a parent coming to this phase now and just seeing these, okay, what is it that is required for my child to still feel safe without me over controlling or over protecting, or maybe pulling away too much and say like, all right, you'll just do whatever you want. Yeah.
Yeah, well, my both are teenagers, so yes, it's a different phase of life, you might say, compared to earlier. Every phase has their own, lovely things, and then also their challenges as well, of course. Well, and it's not easy. It's like a dance, really. I really feel that because, as you said, sometimes not to control too much. It's so hard sometimes because you are so afraid, like me, for her safety, for especially my daughter, if she's young, she's 13, for her safety, for her health and things like that. For example, there's so much information about skincare on TikTok and social media, and there are a lot of girls using that, and there's so much chemicals in them. And where do you put that balance? Like not making them too afraid of everything, too afraid of the, being afraid of putting any makeup on, and also not saying no, you're not allowed to put anything on, and but they will probably do it behind my back then with friends. I'm quite sure they would, because everyone else is doing it, oh, and where do you put that limit? Like, okay, use just only organic and good, but they are much more expensive. And it just an example, for example, right? And it is really a dance. It's not that easy, and there is no straight answer, because if we push too much, they will push down. If you control them too much, they will, I don't know, go out and do different, or go out and do exactly the opposite that you don't want them to do. It's just part of their, getting free, right? And if you, as you said, if you leave them too free, they could get lost, because them sometimes need our protection. It's really just, it's not easy, and I make mistakes all the time. But I think, that this connection to myself comes back, really. I mean, my mom, she's been great, and she's been very good for me, like when I was growing up, but she could be strict, really strict. And sometimes I didn't lie to her so much at all, actually, because I lived in another country, so I didn't have the same fighting. It's more when I was in my 20s, actually, when I moved back and lived there during my summertime, and I was like, oh mom, I'm adult now, I can do this. And it's just this power struggle, kind of, and but irritation, but but I can see this similar power struggle, especially in my daughter. But my son, it was just a few years ago. Now it seems like he's grown out of that, I hope. I don't know, it seems like, but it's more for my daughter. But maybe it's more the daughter thing as well, and I think that's a flow. Sometimes I feel on myself that I can't handle it, because I'm too emotionally invested in that, and maybe I'm exhausted and slept bad and tired, and I feel in myself that I'm not grounded enough about nurturing myself. I haven't nurtured myself enough or grounded. So actually I asked my husband to take that talk with her, for example, because sometimes I'm not able to put those boundaries, or stay by it. I just feel in myself, because I will waver, because I'm too tired and just want to give in, for example, sometimes. So I think it's as always, go back to this connection to ourselves. But it also gives me understanding of my mom, how she felt when I was, and I really feel for her. But yeah, I think this, just being connected and grounded with yourself, taking care of ourselves, that we ourselves feel safe and secure and grounded and nurtured, and come from that place, I think it's easier to handle these situations with our kids, because then it's easier just to step out and breathe and just look at their behavior and say, okay, am I overreacting? Are they overreacting? Is it really dangerous, for example? And it is, okay, fine, I need to set boundary and I need to stick by it, right? But when you are exhausted, sometimes it's really hard to do that. And that's, I think, the self-awareness comes really, as we talked last time, it's really so important and so helpful.
Oh, I think I love that you use the word dance for this, because it means like step back, step forward, give in, control, but then also let go. It's like a flowing experience, right? And I think that is really what nurturing really is. Nurturing isn't a structured, fixed way of being. It's something that evolves over time. It evolves within a situation even, right? Like maybe at first I thought this might be a good idea to, remind someone of doing, and then after a conversation you're like, all right, I'll see your point, maybe I'll pull back and then I'll give in, and then we'll just have this dance together. I think that's really a fabulous way to see life in general. And I think that's what's missing, is that we are in these systems that are more regimented. And so when you have systems that are that way, it is hard for us flowing individuals, because everything in our bodies is flowing, right? Our blood, our water, our air, everything, like everything has to flow. If it doesn't flow, then it's no good news, right? And so when we remember that we have these structures and these you know directions and guidance for a purpose, we can then allow within those boundaries, within those limits, within those guidances, to have room to move and to let ourselves grow. So I guess what I'm hearing here is, like, if you are a parent that is having yeah, you're a parent, you have children, to really witness, like, what kind of way is it that you're operating out of? Are you operating of strict rules, this is how it goes and nothing else? Or have you been able to establish a certain bigger space for movement to happen? Because even with arteries, for example, if they're too tight, the blood doesn't flow, right? So it has to have enough space, meaning what we're taking in, how we're nurturing ourselves, what foods we're taking in, or what additives taking in. Like, I'll just think of smoking. I'm just thinking, because smoking can make those arteries tighter, and therefore it's higher chance to get like a clog, and then the blood flow isn't going, and you'll have some other strokes and whatever not, right? And so really seeing how our body is functioning, what we do in our in our external life, that maybe resembles certain ways that our bodies would not function at all, or function, right? And so to really give a good look, talking about, like you said, awareness, right? And which is our overall theme anyways. And all these conversations that we're having, these exchanges that we're having, have nothing to do with us telling you what to do, just giving you an expanded version of a perspective, right? Like, you got her perspective, you got Diana's perspective, you got my perspective, then you have your perspective. Maybe you take this conversation and talk with someone else, you add another perspective. And I was just sharing earlier today about, and this word expansion came up for me in this particular way, is that we are expansive. We can grow in so many ways. We can take in information and create new information that is different from what we took in from, like, what we read or learned or whatever not, right? To really understand that this shape that we're in is so expandable, that there is no limitation on how we can interact with one another. But oftentimes we stay in those tracks that we were brought into this world, how we were taught, how our parents raised us, how our systems are in place, and forget that we can still be within those boundaries however we want to be. And I think that is the skill set that we have to establish for the bigger picture of being in this world.
Yeah, that's beautiful. No, that's true. And for me, it's when we talked about, this expansion and big dance, and what I was thinking of is like during COVID, and just actually half a year before I became ambassador of Mind Valley, and before that I was deeply depressed. And after my second burned out, and then I broke my leg, and I had blood clot, and a lot of things that just happened, and I was so deeply unhappy. And then and I was stuck in this rigid world that you were talking about, right? And then I started to search for something, and I found a course on Mind Valley about conscious parenting, because I was questioning myself and my way of parenting. Because one of the things that my husband is a male, and he is also Swedish, and he has his own rules. He's quite strict, while I had always been more like, I never liked real rules. I rigid rules really, but I liked to flow, and there were also conflicts during the way where we brought our kids, which many couples have. But I always, really be rigid. It's not always the rigid things with him, but those some few rigid things that he does was really bothering me. And I started, since I was so down and depressed, I started to question myself and my parenting. And then I got into this conscious parenting, and then had opportunity to become Mind Valley ambassador. And then I met people around the world from different cultures that were more like-minded like me, and actually I learned a lot of things that I could do better, and a lot of things that my husband was doing more correctly than I was. And it just opened up my mind, right? Expanded, as you said, expanded my mind, expanded my view of what's right or wrong, or even if there is such a thing, right or wrong, right? And just understanding how people in different cultures and view, and where actually our views actually really met, and where we didn't meet, and where I actually could take something out from them and their experiences and learn from each other. And I really feel that it helped me expand. That also it helped me through the COVID, and then I met you and so many other people. And I think the journey has been so expansive in that way. And I do agree, and I do agree, it's quite important for us human beings, but also I think that all of us that have our own, our own journeys to go, and not everyone will agree with us and our way of, for example, parenting the kids and so on. And it's fine, because it's their way. But I needed to find my way that worked for me, and where I was secure and in myself, in what I was doing and why I was doing it, and could take, say, take responsibility for it and flow with it. So for me, as I talk, being like doing the dance in all the relationships, it's really important, because I never say that I know best. I did it before, and then me and my husband, we had quite a lot of conflict, and I don't do it really anymore, because I don't believe it anymore. I believe we all have our own truths, and based on our culture and experiences in life, and fears and unconscious behaviors, and many things. And we are, because we are complex beings, and so this dance between us people, I think, is such a beautiful one, because it could make the world a better place, because we get a better understanding for one another, and as you say, we can learn from one another, and expand our views of the world, and of what life is and how it could be. And I think it gives place for creativity and curiosity as well.
Oh my goodness. How on earth are you going to mention these two? And we're like towards the end of our conversation. I guess our last conversation has to include these two topics, because I have a lot to say about creativity and curiosity. And I hope my friend is going to watch this, because she would like beam all over her place, because that's all she talks about is curiosity and creativity. Anyway, oh my God. I mean, I want to tie it back to our original start of social media and all the things that we just talked about. And because, yes, social media is a very expensive space, and we have to remember that whatever we're being fed to see, because that thing, that tool that we have, I don't have it here in my phone, is the regimented piece, right? This is a very solid thing. There are the boundaries. There's a lot going on between that, between what we see and where it comes from. All this information is vast. Like, we could not put a measurement between that. Like, it's vast, right? We can't even imagine how much information is out there. And yet, you will only get to see a fraction of all there is. So, for us to really acknowledge, like, if we feel safety is taken, protection is taken from this platform of social media, for example, that we remember that the nurturing doesn't happen inside of there, me being attached to it and trying to get the information, that it's through true living connection with people. When we see something someone says and we don't like it, to have an actual connection with that person, because what you see is only a fraction of what they actually say and do. We cannot in 90 seconds say everything we think about. That's why we're doing these conversations, right? We're doing these conversations to demonstrate how much more there is to say. This is our second time around, and we have a third one coming, as this curiosity and creativity really struck with me. Like, I have two workshops. The last one was curiosity. I mean, I have one whole with 4 sessions, and the last one was curiosity, and the next one is creativity. So it really is like, how did you just get on this? And so I want to really remember to remind us that everything you do, there is another thing to it. And to not just stay stuck with what we see, because everything we're being fed to, especially on this one particular place, can be very one-sided. So it is our job, an active job, to figure out other perspectives too, to communicate with other people and ask them questions. Well, I saw this, which I do a plenty because I have no idea of many things that are going on in the world, and I ask my spouse, I ask my friends, I ask different people. I say, what do you think about this? What is your perspective? Not to have an opinion about it, just to get different ideas come to me. The same thing goes with this motherly connection. Just because I had a certain experience with my mother and with the nurturing in my life and the safety, protection, and care and love in my life doesn't mean that's all there is. But I can connect with other people and get an information from how they experience these pieces, and then expand my horizon and make a new version of it for myself with others. And so that's really where this exploration comes, and the word connection, to really connect in a human experience, not so much on a written and 90-second piece that we've seen, or maybe longer, but like really get into a little bit more and bring curiosity into these. Any other questions or thoughts or feedbacks, or that you wanted to share as
I just said those comments there, they don't say the truth mostly, and some of them are AI generated also, so there is so much bullshit there, to be honest. I don't know if I can say that word on
beep.
beep. Anyways, so now I just want to say that yes, human connection in this space, or this kind of connection for internet, is much better than those few comments that someone you don't even know writes. And because you need to go from your within and trust yourself and be nurtured and grounded in yourself, not to take those into too deep to your heart, because that's one of the things that I'm worried about in our youth, right? Especially in teenage years, and where they are more insecure, and where naturally the opinion of their peers is more important than opinion of their parents, because they naturally want to became, become free from parents, and they are not listening to them as much anymore. It's part of the evolution, and they're listening to the peers, and they think they know these peers from different parts of the world. Maybe half of them are not even kids, you never know, and they're writing these kind of comments, and they take it to their heart, and then they feel bad, and it's so sad. And I talk a lot about that at home with our kids, just saying that don't take it to your heart. You don't even know these people. And just trust in yourself that you are good enough, and you are beautiful enough, and you are safe and good enough. It's, yes, that's the nurturing part. I just wanted to mention that because, yeah, it's important to talk about these things.
Most definitely. And thank you for pointing in that direction. And also, like, we need these constant reminders, even if as a child, we might say, enough of this. I don't care. Whatever you say, even if these are reactions, it still will land with them somehow, some way. Because I always feel like at the end of the day, we all, if you are a grown up and even have your own children, at some point, it will all resonate with you. It might not resonate at that time, but maybe it's because they're a different age, they're in a different environment. And so let's let everyone have a way to explore, to expand on their own time, and create a space and environment where we can do this. So, yes, thank you so much again, Diana, for spending a little time with me here. And I look forward to our next episode where we talk about curiosity and creativity. And for everyone who has been watching, thank you so much for being here with us. Let us know what you think, what you've been missing, what you're looking for us to touch on. And till next time.
Thank you. Bye.